Well, it began in the early hours of this morning, and for the entire day, the story that dominated headlines was the release of a damning State of the Environment report. Now, it seemed to be a book of endless catastrophe. The report authors used some very emotive language like our environmental degradation was a threat to humanity. It could bring about societal collapses. We've lost more mammal species than any other continent. And the new Environment Minister was all shock and awe as well.
Overall, the state of the environment is bad. It's getting worse, and the laws and the systems that we have in place to protect the environment aren't working. If we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to end up with a degraded environment, unproductive farmland, oceans polluted with plastic, threatened species becoming extinct. It is a very disturbing read.
I think it's an advantage if, as a country, we're reminded that we need to do more to look after our environment. It's important because I think everyone cares for their environment, especially this one. Now, there is no doubt Australia, like the rest of the world, is trying to balance the growth in urban living, the need to mine valuable resources, the need to find income with the protection of that environment. As the report points out, Australian cities are growing at a faster rate than other developed cities across the planet. The pace of growth has increased urban heat, congestion, pollution and waste, and put rising pressure on water and energy resources as well. So the emphasis today on this destruction of our environment because of CO2 emissions here, which was pointed out by so many who took to various radio stations, just exhibits a complete ignorance in the science.
This disturbing list is made worse by climate change. Global warming multiplies environmental pressures everywhere. It heats our oceans, it deepens droughts, it intensifies disease, it destroys habitats, and it worsens extreme weather events, which tilt the balance of ecosystems beyond recognition. The bushfires of 2019 and 2020 are still being felt today. Those bushfires were an ecological bomb ripping through southeastern Australia. They killed or displaced up to 3 billion creatures.
Hold on a second. Tanya Plibersek was going okay until that point. To make a direct link between Australia's emissions and bushfires is not part of the science. Firstly, we had more horrific bushfires in 1851 and 1939. Secondly, the CO2 we emit into the atmosphere does not stay static, and our impact on our environment is not as commensurate with the natural disasters we have. Thirdly, the planet is one collective. It's a sweeping weather system, a solar system. And fourthly, we emit less than 2% of the world's CO2 anyway. 50% is emitted by China, India and the US combined. It's their CO2, which you could argue, using the science, that has a larger impact on our weather. So let's not correlate what we've done in terms of emissions, mission targets in this country in the last 10 years with the direct impact that's had on our natural disasters. So let's break down what this report also said. Let's not purely seize upon the negative. The report found that waterways, beaches and shorelines are in generally poor condition in areas near urban centres, but mostly in good condition in more remote areas. Now, does that mean CO2 emissions carefully differentiate between urban and rural environments? Of course not. It means we need to do more about our waste, about our chemical and plastic pollution. Now, on plastic pollution, Tanya does understand that.
In Perth, scientists have found up to 60,000 pieces of plastic per square kilometre of water. In Brisbane, they found between 40,000 and 80,000. At the top end, in the Torres Strait and Timor Sea, abandoned fishing gear has been killing marine animals on an industrial scale. These underwater hurricanes of debris are known as ghost nets, and they're strangling up to 14,000 turtles a year, turtles which are listed as threatened.
So we can do more about that, but it's got nothing to do with CO2 emissions. And about the plastics, well, what's China, Korea, Indonesia and all the other major manufacturing countries doing about the plastics they make in packaging, for instance. That's not really something we can change or feel guilty about. And we also learned today that we have more noxious foreign weeds than native vegetation at the moment, not to mention enormous feral animal populations killing our wildlife. Well, that's what happens when you fence off national parks, you tell people to keep out, and you refuse to manage the undergrowth, and you don't manage those feral cats, red foxes, rabbits, feral horses and deer. But we can't exterminate them. No shooting in the modern world. You won't be taking a gun into the national park. So no mention of that from the Environment Minister either. Although Tanya did announce an expansion of our national estate to 30% of our land. That means more fences, more parks and more mismanagement of those national parks. What was incriminating today, to be fair, is that the former Environment Minister, Susan Lee, has been sitting on this report since before Christmas. The now Deputy Opposition Leader of the Liberal Party has some serious questions to answer on that. But one final point. Near the end of her National Press Club address today, the Minister made this observation about the environment that she sees when she flies back from overseas into town.
It's the feeling that you get when you're coming home after a time away. You see it with fresh eyes and fresh appreciation. The crystal blue sky, clearer than anywhere else in the world, the glimmer and sparkle of Sydney Harbour, the long green stretches of National Park bordering our cities, the perfect ring of beaches that meet the sea, or the corrugated red ridges of Central Australia. Every time, that same feeling, that feeling of home stirring inside us. That's our natural heritage. That's what we're committed to protecting.
The best in the world, she says. Perfect. That sounds like a fabulous environment to me. Where's that again? Right here. You can't have it both ways, Tanya. And by the way, not all Aussies have even been abroad, so they don't know that feeling of banking over the Sydney Harbour Bridge. We have some work to do, of course we do. But the reduction of our CO2 will solve nothing, and there's still plenty of this country unspoilt, thriving, and free for all of us to enjoy.